I'm Nancy McCammon-Hansen. I am the co-convener of the Fort Wayne Area League of Women Voters.
And I'm Betsy Kachmar. I am membership chair of the Fort Wayne Area League of Women Voters, and we're here to talk to you about the League of Women Voters.
And the elections this year. As you well know, this is going to be one of the most interesting presidential election years that we have ever had in our history. And women, despite what we think about equality, have still not had 100 years of voting in this country. The League of Women Voters was founded in 1920 by Carrie Chapman Catt, and it was part of the convention of the National American Women's Suffrage Association. They had been meeting for about 6 months before the 19th Amendment to the United States Constitution was approved, and that was done in 1920. Now, to put some perspective on that, my paternal grandmother was pregnant with my father when she got the right to vote. She had been married, already had 2 children, when she finally was able to vote in a presidential election. Now, my father just died 3 years ago, so this is a really current part of our history. The League was founded in part to help the 20 million women who were in this country get up to speed with the elections, the public policies, and the issues of the day. And from the beginning, the League has been a grassroots organization. We do not support any one candidate. We study issues from both sides, which in today's world probably seems a little strange to some of you, since most of our news organizations are slanted to a certain extent. And it was an organization that was looked upon as playing a critical role in advocacy for specific issues. The League is nonpartisan. We study issues. We do not just come to a conclusion about what our stance should be. We study both sides of an issue. So if you're a person who, say, for example, has a hard time making up their mind about an issue, or a person who believes that the truth sometimes is in the middle between 2 opposing sides, the League of Women Voters is a great organization for you. And since the 1970s, the League has been open to men also. So even though we are the League of Women Voters, we most often go by LWV. We are locally active here. We are active at the state level and active at the national level. The League in the 1970s in Fort Wayne was a very large organization, and when women went back into the workforce, the League actually died out, and in the last 8 years we brought it back, and we've done some really interesting things, which Betsy is going to tell you about.
Yeah, okay. Well, I can certainly tell you about the things that I've been involved in the, 7-8 years that we've...
Eight,
wow.
Yeah.
That we've been reactive. A couple of my favorite things about our particular league, and league in general, I think, is how collaborative it is, and what the partnerships that we've been able to make to do a lot of things in the community that don't require any money because we have no budget, and really relatively little time on our part to make some pretty amazing things happen. So we co-sponsored all sorts of educational events, movie nights, debates, information sessions. We have attended meetings of other organizations and city council. We've done training for people to help them be better involved in their community. Wow, that's just what I could think of off the top of my head.
One of the major issues, I guess, we partner with the YWCA, the Women's Bureau, and AAUW every year for Pay Equity Day. And this is the day, typically in April, when a woman's salary catches up to what a man's salary was at the end of the previous calendar year for the same job. Most women in this country make far less than men doing comparable work. Women, on the average, make 78 cents to every dollar that a man makes. And this has a great impact on our society because women don't have as many discretionary dollars. They typically pay more for products that are directed toward women. And a good example of that is I was shopping this last year during the week of Pay Equity Day. I found socks that were about $5 difference in price, but basically the same item. And women go through this quite often, and it's got a detrimental effect on our society. So the 4 women's organizations partner together. We usually have a rally, and we do some work with op-ed pieces in the local newspapers and do some education with different employers as to why it's important for women to make a comparable salary to men. We've also had some different forums over the last few years. One of my favorites was the Judges Forum. Were you at that, Betsy?
Yeah, that was good.
That was, it was when Wendy Davis, Lewis Griffin, and Ken Scheibenberger ran for judge. And I think most of the people there walked out of the room at the YWCA, who was our partner, as was the Women's Bureau, knowing more about the legal system than any of us would ever have thought. And one of the key things that people said to me was that they were surprised at how much a judge's hands are tied by the law. They have to follow the law. They can't be like a TV judge who kind of does their own thing. So
no judge duties here. Huh?
Yeah, no judge duties in Fort Wayne, no.
Well, and I think the other thing that was really cool about that is it was something that nobody else had done. A conversation with judges for a judge's race doesn't usually happen. You usually invite city council people or a congressman or something like that. But I think it was a different perspective on the system.
But we have had a city council forum. We partnered with Fifth Freedom on that, and we've also partnered with the Down Center for Indiana Politics at IPFW for city council. And the first city council forum we did with the Down Center. And the thing that I found most interesting about that was that by the end of the evening, the candidates for city council were sitting there almost talking with one another as much as the audience. And they had a great conversation going. They were all getting along really well. And it was a great example of how you can put people with varying opinions together and have a reasonable conversation about an issue. So that was really great.
Yeah. So that's what we've been doing. Shall we talk a little bit about what we're going to do?
Sure.
Okay.
You want to talk about Women's Equality Day?
Yeah. So in addition to Pay Equity Day, another thing that women celebrate, as Nancy was talking about, was getting the right to vote. So the day that we celebrate that each year is August 26th, because that is when the 19th Amendment was signed into law. So that was the day in what year was that?
Women's Equality Day began in 1972.
72.
Actually,
yeah.
Bella Abzug, and those of you who remember Bella, she was quite the character, but a great woman. And she was the first one to introduce legislation in Congress to honor Women's Equality Day. And so it's been going ever since then.
Right. So, and so in honor of it, this year, we've actually organized a whole week, really, of excitement to go along with that. So kicking it off on the day before, on August 25th, the YWCA and Turnstone are hosting a Women's Equality Day celebration at Turnstone. The focus is going to be there on helping to make sure that people are registered to vote, know about their rights to vote. They can practice voting using the new machines that we have, not that new anymore, what to expect at the polls and that sort of thing. While it is being hosted at Turnstone and certainly will be ADA accessible and certainly available for people who have disabilities, it is open to everyone, and so anyone can come to that. It will be held from noon until 3 at Turnstone. And if you've not been to Turnstone lately, you really need to use this as an excuse to go. I bet they would let you wander around a little bit and see the amazing new gym that they've built, and all sorts of adaptive equipment that's out there. Just really a spectacular addition to our community, let alone Turnstone. So again, that's August 25th. at Turnstone. And if you don't know how to get there, it's go to like you're going to Target and then get lost, and it's right there.
Right. It's up Spy Run, or Lafayette, which becomes Spy Run, which becomes Clinton, which becomes Coldwater, and it's off of Coldwater. It's Coldwater, between Coldwater and Clinton.
It's in the Fort Wayne Bermuda Triangle.
Right. It's near the mall.
Right. But it's much bigger building now, so it's harder to miss.
Right. And one of the interesting things, and I think a key thing that this day will do, and having done some voter registration at Easter Seals Arc also, there's quite a move in this area to make voting more accessible to those with disabilities, to encourage that population to get out and vote. Fifth Freedom works very hard at that and has done an excellent job. And there are other organizations that are working to get more and more people as part of the voting population. Now, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that this year I think you're probably going to see more people voting than you have in past years, simply because there's such a difference between the two presidential candidates. But one of the things that we encounter is that in primaries, a lot of people don't vote because they are afraid that somebody's going to learn what party they belong to, because you vote by party in a primary.
You get pigeonholed.
But the people who vote in the primaries are the ones who pick the candidates. So if you don't like the candidates that we have, you need to get out there and vote in the primary and get involved in the political process. And that's one thing that this day at Turnstone, the YWCA, the League, other organizations that will be participating are trying to do, is to get more and more people out there participating, because that's the only way you get your voice heard. You don't get your voice heard sitting at home, talking on your cell phone, complaining to your brother or sister that you don't like who's running for president or city council or mayor or whatever. Or posting on Facebook, yes. Yeah, one of my favorite things.
Yeah. So the other thing that I think is going to be a little bit different this year, too, is even in Indiana, there are now more opportunities to vote absentee or early voting, not necessarily having to be there on the day at the location. And that's a really decent accommodation for people with disabilities as well. If you can't, if it's difficult for you to get out of the house, there are a lot more options available to vote. And it's a lot easier to register to vote now. You can do it online, and it's not as cumbersome as it used to be, I think. It's just something that people can do as soon as they think about it, as long as they've got access to the internet, or something like that. So then the next thing that's happening on Women's Equality Week is actually happening on the day, on August 26th. And Cinema Center is hosting a free, yes, I said free, movie. And the movie's called Equal Means Equal. And there's a little blurb about it. If you want to go to Cinema Center's website and also their Facebook page, they've got a nice little promo about it that has the Rosie Riveter logo of a woman that has been empowered back in the day. And I really don't know too much about the movie. There's a little blurb that we can tell you the official summary here. Right, from the movie website, Equal Means Equal offers a, quote, unflinching look, unquote, at how women are treated in the United States today. And as someone who grew up in the 1970s, came of age in the 70s, I'll tell you, we've come a long way, baby, but we still got a long way to go. They take real-life stories, precedent-setting legal cases, and they look at outdated and discriminatory attitudes that influence how we look at issues affecting women. I know one of the Olympians from the United States won a bronze medal the other day, and she was identified on Facebook as the wife of a pro football player, and her name was not mentioned in the headline. And a couple of my friends made a few comments about that. But that's something that women go through quite often in this country. And it's like the pictures of Bill Clinton when Hillary was nominated.
Right. And Fortunately, there was no description of his suit, but anyway. We do have some disparities in this country in the way that the laws protect women when it comes to domestic violence, rape, sexual assault, equal wages, that sort of thing. So it looks to be a very interesting movie. And we really thank the Cinema Center, the Fort Wayne Cinema Center, for thinking of the League and inviting us to participate with that. After the movie, Dr. Janet Badia, who is a professor at IPFW and director of women's studies, and Dr. Lisa Beringer, who just got her doctorate this last week. She is an assistant professor at Ivy Tech. They're going to lead a discussion about the film, and knowing those two women, it's going to be lively, I can tell you that, and I think it's going to be a great evening. And as Betsy said, the tickets are free. You do have to pick up your tickets in advance at the Cinema Center when their box office is open. We showed in cooperation with the Cinema Center Suffragette back in March for Women's Equality Day, and we packed the house rather quickly. And so the Cinema Center elected to issue tickets for this particular production, and any seats that go unfilled before the movie starts at 7 are then going to, then they'll let people in if there are any people who are outstanding in line. So if you really want to see the movie, and we suggest that you do, please pick up your tickets in advance. We're also going to be offering voter registration that evening from 6 to 6:45, so there's another chance to get registered to vote if you haven't done so already.
Yeah, and do feel free to take a risk. We very well may not sell out. So if you don't pick up your ticket in advance, just show up. Show up a little early, register to vote, and you're likely to get a seat.
And that's also the first evening of Taste of the Arts that's sponsored by Arts United. This is the Cinema Center's Friday night offering for Taste of the Arts, so there'll be lots of things going on downtown, so there's nowhere you're going to be bored if you get out of your car and walk around a little bit.
Yeah, and speaking of which, then Taste of the Arts is that Saturday, August 27th, and we will be having a table in Fryman Square along with other community partners that'll be participating in that event, and Busker Square and all of the other things that are going on that day. So the information tables will be available from 11 to 6. And so look for us. We'll be the ones that have the League of Women Voters stuff at their table, and we will be able to register people to vote there too.
And we're also going to have an activity for kids this year, so bring your kids and enjoy, because it's a great time in downtown Fort Wayne. It's one of the, I think, better and more fun festivals in the summer, Taste of the Arts.
Right, and it's free until you want to eat something. And then, of course, you will, because it's about eating. Because
it's about food and fun.
Right, and art.
And art.
Yeah.
Yes, you got to have art.
Yeah, and food. So just to give you a heads up on another thing that's coming up is National Voter Registration Day. So all around the country, September 27th, there will be thousands of activities going on trying to remind people that the deadline for getting your self-registered to vote in the upcoming election will be right around the corner. So it's just a little bit prior to that October 3rd deadline?
I believe so.
I think it is. And so no point in waiting till the very last minute. So as I said, it's very, very easy to register to vote. All you have to do is go online. There's a lot of resources to help you do that, and we'll talk about those in a minute. But keep your eyes open for opportunities to participate on September 27th. Kind of the idea is sort of random acts of voter registration. I think people are encouraged to find a place that is willing to let you set up shop, which could just be standing there with your iPad and or sheets of voter registration forms in front of name the place for name the amount of time, and asking people if they're registered to vote and helping them do that if they're not. Also, it's not just about registering. There's a lot of people that may have changed their address or their status in some way of of their registration. So it's really important to keep it up to date too. And then you can also remind people how they can find out where their polling place is and all the other things. Let them know that there is early voting or absentee balloting available, just to make sure that they have no excuse whatsoever not to vote. Because if you don't vote, you can't complain.
And along with that, if you have a business or if you're part of a group that possibly would have a number of people who are not registered to vote, if you would send us a message via our Facebook page, Fort Wayne Area League of Women Voters, we would be happy to get somebody out there to either train you on registering people to vote or to actually register people to vote. This would be a great activity for a business to encourage their employees to register. And it's a wonderful opportunity, I think, in this country to really emphasize the need for us all to vote. I know I read one day that in the country of Australia, you are automatically registered to vote, and if you don't vote, you pay a fine. Now, I have a feeling Americans would not be particularly keen on that, but it says how important voting is to the people of Australia. And I know in Oregon, you are now automatically registered to vote. I don't know if it's when you get your driver's license but it's a recent law that's been passed, and they're really putting an emphasis on voting. And it's something that we all need to do, we all need to be a part of, because democracy doesn't work if we don't also.
Right. That's another point to make, too. A lot of people don't know that you can always register to vote at the license branches. All of the Indiana license branches can register you to vote anytime, whether you're there for a license or not. So that's another place in case you need assistance. But again, there's so many online opportunities that come to the library, borrow a computer from a friend, however you want to do it, and it's really very simple.
And just so that you know, voter registration is in the Rousseau Center, which is on the corner of Main and Clinton, across the street west of Fryman Square. Fryman Square is where the newly refurbished statue of Anthony Wayne is. You can park for free, actually, on the edge of Fryman Square. And voter registration is on the first floor. It's round the corner from the election board, but there are people at the information desk who can point you in the right direction. Do not hesitate if you have questions to call them or go in there and ask a question. And that's also where early voting will be. If you check their websites and the local media, you can find out for sure when early voting is going to be, particularly if you're going to be out of town in November, or if you have an elderly person in the family who can't get out to vote. Absentee ballots are a great way to go.
Right. Their phone number, by the way, is 260-449-7154, and that's the Allen County Voter Registration Office. They're in the Rousseau Center in the county office building. 449-7154. There's also a really good website called IndianaVoters.com. Another good website is Vote411.org. They also can direct you to local information, even though they are state and or national website. You just type in your zip code or your county or whatever, and they will tell you all of the information about you. It also is a really good place to get information about who's running. So it'll give you the names of the people who are on the ballot. Not tons of information about them, but at least you'll know the names, and you can look up information about what your choices are.
And if you want to get more information about the election that is confirmed as being the truth, there is a website called politifact.com. That's politifact.com. And this is a website that is run by editors and reporters from the Tampa Bay Times, which is an independent newspaper in Tampa Bay, Florida. They have won a Pulitzer Prize for their work, and it's one that I check quite often. I get an email from them on a regular basis. And they go through claims by groups, by elected officials, by candidates, by leaders of political parties, political activists, and they do their level best to determine whether or not what are stated as facts are actually true. And one of the things that they do is they have a truth-o-meter, and they make a ruling on statements. And the meter has 6 ratings. The first one is true, so if the statement is accurate and there's nothing significant missing, it gets labeled true. Or it gets labeled mostly true. The statement is accurate but needs clarification or additional information. Or it can be half true. The statement is partially accurate but leaves out important details or takes things out of context. And we all know, if we watched enough television news, that happens quite often, and that's an editorial remark. Mostly false. The statement contains an element of truth but ignores critical facts that would give a different impression. False. The statement is not accurate. And then the final one is pants on fire. The statement is not accurate and makes a ridiculous claim. Now, some of the things that they look at are the specific wording of a claim. Is it a precise statement, or does it contain mitigating words or phrases? They examine the claim in full context and comments made before and after it. And they also look at the question that prompted the remark, and the point that the person was trying to make. They make sure that people who make factual claims are held accountable for what they say, and that they should be able to provide evidence to back them up. They try to verify statements, but they believe that the burden of proof is on the person making the statement. When it comes to a compound statement, they do rate the overall accuracy of a claim, even though parts of it may be right and parts of it may be wrong. And they look at the timing of a statement and what information was available at that time, because that really does make a difference. So PolitiFact.com is a great website to access, and as I said, if you go to their website, you can sign up to get an email from them. They also look at candidates with their flipometer. That means that if you get a no-flip designation, you've had no significant change in a position. If you have a half flip, you've had a partial change in your position, and a full flop is a complete change in position, which is not necessarily a bad thing. As more information comes along, sometimes you do change your mind. But as we all know, that in politics, changing your mind sometimes isn't looked upon very positively by your opponent. So, Betsy, we have about a minute or so.
Okay.
What would you like to add?
I guess the one thing I would like to add is, one of the things that we haven't talked about voting yet is the requirement for having a picture ID, a photo ID. A lot of people find that frustrating, intimidating, limiting. So in order for that not to be, I just wanted to clarify, obviously a driver's license is certainly acceptable. A valid U.S. passport, if you have one of those, is acceptable. The state of Indiana will issue you a state ID that doesn't allow you to drive, but it does provide you with a photo ID. Student photo IDs from any state university, like IPFW or Ivy Tech or any of those the universities that might provide a photo ID would be acceptable as long as they have an expiration date on them. And again, like I said, you can certainly get a free photo ID from the Bureau of Motor Vehicles. So you can go in, if you're not registered to vote already, you can register to vote and get your photo ID and have that ready before the election on November 3rd. So that's the important thing that I want to tell you about that. The other thing is just to make sure you have no excuse whatsoever, CityLink, the public transit system, is offering free fares on Election Day on November 3rd to make sure that everybody has a way to get to the polls. So hop on to indianavoters.com, find out where your polling place is, and then hop on a CityLink bus and get yourself over there on November 3rd and and do your citizen duty and cast your right to vote.
And if you have a favorite political party, I'm sure that they'll help you get a ride to the polls, too.
There's that, too.
Okay. I'm Nancy Hansen with the League of Women Voters.
And I'm Betsy Kachmar.
And we thank you for listening, and we thank you to Eric and WELT for giving us this time. Thank you.
Thank you. For more information about the Fort Wayne Area League of Women Voters, go to our website, LWVFW, for League of Women Voters Fort Wayne, so lwvfw.org. Or check out and like our Facebook page at Fort Wayne Area League of Women Voters. Or you can send us an email at info@lwvfw.org. We want to thank Eric and WELT for giving us this opportunity. We're hoping to make this a regular event, and I believe that the next time we get together to chat, we're going to be talking about redistricting. So get your gerrymandering hat on, and we'll talk about that later.